Welcome to History Uncharted, where we dive into the hidden depths of the past. It was a pleasant night in the summer of 1442. The air was still, the sky clear. Two women whispered near a doorway. One glanced upward, the other pointed toward the sky. And then they hastily retreated behind a closed door. Every window in the village was shut tight, not to keep the cold out, but to keep something far more dangerous from getting in. The hearths glowed faintly, families settled into silence, and all across the countryside, not a soul dared leave the windows open. Because in the minds of medieval people, the night itself could kill. In medieval Europe, people believed that diseases weren't spread by germs, but by air. Not just any air, but night air. Corrupted, heavy, invisible, yet deadly. It had a name, miasma. It echoed the writings of ancient physicians, especially Galen and Hippocrates. The worst air was said to cling close to the ground, unseen, but thick as fog. When a person fell ill, it was believed that something had tipped the balance, and often that something came from the air. Rotting matter, swamps, corpses, foul odors, all were thought to release invisible toxic vapors. And when these vapors touched the body, they poisoned the humors within. The result? Fevers, madness, even plague. So a cool breeze might feel pleasant, but to a medieval mind, it was a warning. To stay indoors, keep the fires lit and windows locked. There was another fear the night air carried. Not just fever, not just plague, but something else. Whispers in the lanes, footsteps where no one should be. When the winds picked up after dark, they said it was not always the sickness that moved with them, but the ones who used the wind as cover, thieves who walked the lanes like smoke. They moved in silence between cottages, past the ways where a desperate lone traveler might be, one who had strayed too far from the road, seeking shelter or warmth or mercy. Then there were other strange things that stirred after dark. Things that breathed heavily and passed by the door, unseen. They left no footprints, cast no shadows. They were the spirits that wandered beneath the moon, moving through the mist and vanishing into the air. There were stories of hearing your own name whispered outside, a loved one's voice speaking from just beyond the shutter. But when the door was opened, no one stood there, only the night. Some villagers spoke of lanterns seen in the hills, single flames, drifting where no shepherd walked. They would flicker once, then vanish. No one went out unless they had to, and those who did moved quickly, heads down, a prayer on the lips. So after nightfall, one could not tell which danger was worse, the one you could see or the one you could not. And so the countryside locked itself in. Each village had its own tale to tell. As always, when fear settled in, the people looked to the church. The church gave people comfort, but it also gave the night a different kind of weight. When the bells rang at dusk, it wasn't just to mark the hour. It was to drive back the air. Some said the sound pushed it away, the heavy breath that gathered at sundown. Inside the halls, incense burned thick. Smoke curled into the upper shadows, not just for ritual, but for protection. If the air was going to turn, then the church would try to change it first. There were nights the monks walked the streets, swinging censers, blessing corners, murmuring to no one in particular, and driving away the bad air. But even churches weren't always safe. Candles that flickered too sharply or choked and died before the end of Mass were signs. Some believed these signs meant death was near or that the sickness was on the move. Irrespective, the church continued its rituals, every day, every night. After sundown, the countryside feared what drifted in. The towns feared what they had already trapped. Narrow lanes, rotting refuse, chamber pots dumped into alleys, all made the air worse. The city's breath itself was feared, stagnant and heavy. The bells at the city centre rang, not just to mark curfew, but to warn. Streets emptied, markets closed. Even the watchmen held cloth to their mouths. After the bell, even footsteps sounded guilty. If someone was heard walking after dark, doors stayed shut. No one wanted to let the sickness in. Physicians rarely answered night calls. Even if they did, they left herbs at doorsteps or gave instructions through shutters. Town wells, lifelines by day, were covered tight by dusk. It was believed the bad air could settle into the water. Travelers who arrived after sunset were turned away, city gates locked early. Every knock after nightfall was a question. Do you let the air in with them? Town messengers, the voice of the day, went silent by night. Even news had to wait for the morning. It was said that speaking too loud after dark drew the spirits in the air. The city was dense, built to protect, but at night it became a kind of trap. Not everyone made it to morning. Sometimes there was one window that didn't open again. After sundown, no one trusted the open air. Rituals and superstitions stitched themselves into everything. A small piece of bread was kept on the windowsill outside, for the sickness to take it and move away. The doors were then not just shut, they were barred. Onion slices were rubbed across doors. Garlic hung near door frames. Windows were sealed with cloth or crusted with herbs. Rosemary, lavender, thyme. Cloths soaked in vinegar were pressed to mouths. No sweeping was allowed at night, for it was believed it disturbed the air. Fires were kept alive, not only for warmth, but to keep the air moving. It was believed that smoke drove the sickness away. Some families left one person awake, because if the fire died, they said, so might someone else. Faith entered too. Crosses made of straw were fastened above windows. Every night, a verse was whispered, one final psalm for protection. Candles were lit, their faces turned eastward, towards the promise of light. These all were ways of providing protection against illness, spirits, and negative energies. So the smallest gestures became spells of survival, until the day rose again. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe.